everyone, Greg from Green Pro Painting here, DYB coach. Today I wanted to share with you what a typical commercial painting proposal looks like and some of the things to look out for, the do's and don'ts. So let's get started. All right, so what you see here is a painting proposal for a job that we just recently did for our commercial painting company. And I'm going to go through all the items on it and break down exactly what it needs to look like for you. So at the top of the bid, you're going to see painting bid 09900. The commercial painting, that's typically the way that finishes are described, and it limits yourself to that particular scope. Just below that there, you're going to see the license information. So you're going to put that for your respective state. Make sure you include that so this way they know you're licensed to perform the work. And here below that, it's dated, and this is the date that we actually submit the proposal. So that's 1/1/19. Then if we've made any modifications to it, we put in parentheses that it's been updated. And then next to that, or just below that, you will see attention construction company, whatever the construction company is. Be sure to include a specific estimator or somebody that had requested it for you. Make sure you include their contact info there. And which job specifically is it regarding? As we move on below that, we like to list off very specifically what the date of the drawings are that we have on file. So for this job here, you'll see that I just added this in, job dated through 1/1/19. If there's any modifications post your proposal sent to them, you can easily just refer back to your proposal, original proposal, and provide any additional pricing that's necessary. And then below that, we have a little line item here to identify whether or not the job is prevailing wage or Davis-Bacon wage. And we're going to put no on that unless it's specifically specified. And this could save your butt if you ever get into a commercial situation. Say, for example, you're bidding a government job where it's not clearly defined and you're not able to submit additional pricing for it. Just below that, we're going to get into our scope of work. So for this job specifically, there were 12 items included. Not a very big job. Small burger franchise, something you guys might have in your home state. So we had wood doors and frames, hollow metal doors and frames, interior wood running trim, which was a chair rail and also a baseboard. Typically, you don't find that on a commercial job, but we specifically noted that here. Caulking of field painted door frames and wood running trim, if applicable. Sometimes you don't have to caulk things because of meeting up to another substrate. Caulking of acoustical ceiling tile grid and FRP to wall. So that's back of house. That's what BOH stands for. That's behind the kitchen wall where all the cooking goes on. That's a federal regulation for that now for kitchens. Exposed ceiling, structure, and columns. That was in the main dining area. The whole entire exposed ceiling was sprayed, as well as the HVAC ductwork, any sprinkler piping, all those things. So we make sure that we include that in there. And then you have your standard gypsum walls, ceilings, which are in the restrooms, soffits and bulkheads, anywhere there's a transition of ceiling heights. And we specifically excluded drywalling work here because sometimes there's a little gray area with that on jobs. And then as we move on, we've got wood siding, bar shelving, and underside of bar. In this particular job, there was just kind of a restored wood finish, kind of barn wood finish on the back, and we had to put a fireproofing on there, which is a very specific coating, and we had a special order that. If you can see here, it's clear coated with Class C fire coating. And then as we move on, we're moving into the exterior part of the job. It's tiny dining patio guardrail, which is exactly what it sounds like. Then we have exposed rooftop gas piping, typically where the gas runs from the meter to the unit. Then we have some exterior touch-up on this one, which we weren't really sure how much, to what extent that was going to be. So we highlighted that on here. And then on every single project, the way that we like to bid them is we add some touch-up hours depending on the size of the job, so that if there's any damages by trades, they have some hours allotted and they know that they're not going to get back charged unless it exceeds a certain amount. Now, we've had great success in this in the past, but on some jobs, people feel that it's difficult to appropriate the right amount of hours depending on this job size. Something that you might want to consider trying. And then just below that, you'll see the total base bid, and this is where we put our price in. Below that, we'll have some RFIs. If there's a specific item that we're not certain about, maybe there's a color not listed, maybe there's a product not listed, we will be very specific about listing those items out individually. And also, if there's any type of additional pricing. So sometimes they'll ask for an alternate price on using a different product, or maybe they just want to delete something. So we'll add those in below the RFIs. And we'll get into our exclusions, which is very important. You want to make sure that you include the things that you're not going to do. And for us, one of those things is we don't do fire caulking, acoustical sealants, unless otherwise noted. Caulking of pre-finished substrates, which could be your storefront windows. A lot of the times the window installer will disappear off the job after they install on the exterior, but they never come back to caulk the interior. So this can save you a lot of money and time depending on the size of the job. We have touch up due to trade damages after the 8 hours. It's kind of like what I was talking about before. We don't include that in our bid. It's impossible to quantify that. Parking and pavement painting. So we're not doing handicap signs. We are not doing any lines on the parking lot, curbs, anything of that nature. Concrete, floor finishes, and sealants. There were other trades doing that on this specific job, so we exclude that on our bid. You may want to include that on yours. You could simply just add that up into the scope of work. And we don't paint any laminates or FRP. Glass film, which is basically tint, is done by somebody else. Site-related painting. There are no civil plans on this job because this particular job was a tenant improvement. So it was an existing building that was retrofitted for this specific restaurant. So anything that was not listed on the drawings, we did not anticipate. They were replacing the awning frames. We're going to assume that those are pre-finished unless otherwise noted. Interior galvanized pipe, framing, and metal screens. So standard, you don't typically paint over galvanized metal unless it's a very specific type of galvanized metal, so we exclude that. Exterior scope, except guard railing and gas piping. So, and then below that, on our second page here is where all of our kind of details are about payment and things of that nature. So for this particular project, we're going to include labor, equipment, and materials, taxes to perform the required work. Proposal is good for 60 days. You want to make sure you date them in case somebody comes back to you a year later and you may have a price increase. And your vendors typically have a duration of time that they're willing to honor pricing, and it's not generally past 60 days. If they need a bond for this specific project, that's something that you can include pricing. We're going to tell them that we're going to bill out mobilization prior to commencement of the job. And that doesn't always happen on commercial construction, but it is in our contract. All specified paint coats installed prior to cabinets and fixtures. So that means that we get to get in there and do our finishes before the floors are done, things of that nature, because you know that can get quite costly having to cover everything up in the middle of a job. Any products that weren't available in bid documents, we're assumed that we have the discretion to choose those. Standard commercial practices is a 1-year warranty against defects and workmanship. And then we always put the caveat in there about the PDCA standards. That can really save your butt if you ever get into a situation where there's an issue with a coating, or somebody might have, I'm sure you guys have seen this, people break out the halogen lights and they're holding them 1 foot from the wall with the microscope looking at everything. And also we have listed here that we're not responsible for cleaning of substrates that become dirty due to improper site storage. So you might run into that with structural steel, where they lay that out in the yard, it gets covered in mud, and then they erect it and they expect us to go in there and just paint it, clean it off and paint it, but that's not something that we can anticipate. So we make sure that we include that. And then just below that, we ask for a schedule. Not on the smaller projects, you don't generally get them, but we do ask for it so that if they ever tell us that we have to work overtime or show up with extra guys on site, we cover ourselves for that. And below that, we have our additional work, and we price that up front. We tell them what our billable hour is, if there's going to be overtime, what it is, what our markup is for material. And Also, we let them know that we're not including per diem in that pricing. So if we're traveling out of town or any heavy equipment that we need to rent, it's not covered in our, so that'll be basically a time and material situation if there's any additional work on site. Hey, thank you guys for stopping in. Just to recap what we talked about today, some of the do's and don'ts with commercial painting estimating, some things that you want to include on your proposals. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them below the video here or send me an email at greg@dybcoach. Thanks. You guys can do this.